November 9th, 1863. A heavy fog sits over the water surrounding the port city of Wilmington as the sun slips below the watered horizon. 42-year-old Captain John Wilkinson, commander of the Confederate blockade-running ship R.E. Lee, prepares to slip through the squadron of Union vessels that line the coast of North Carolina. If he and his crew make it, this will be the mercenary commander's 22nd successful blockade run. The ever-confident captain must still wonder, will this run end in success or capture? America at War is brought to you by the Park Foundation. Welcome to today's presentation of America at War. Following the establishment of the Union blockade in April of 1861, and the First Battle of Bull Run in July, both sides of the conflict came to the realization that the war between the states would not be a short affair. For the Confederate States, this meant that a constant stream of supplies would somehow have to find a way to the South, despite the Union fleet. The Confederacy needed a source of supplies, and perhaps more importantly, sailors willing to sneak those supplies past the blockade. Hence, a new breed of seaman, the blockade runner, was born. Ships designed for blockade running were built very differently than their ironclad warship cousins. The ironclads, such as the USS Monitor or CSS Merrimack, were built solely as seafaring vehicles for their disproportionately large cannons. Adding to their sluggishness were their ironclad hulls, designed for defense against guns on land. All this weight made the ironclads incredibly slow and virtually obsolete for the purpose of blockade running. The blockade running ships, however, were designed for outrunning, not outgunning the enemy. Built almost exclusively in England, blockade running ships typically had low profiles, shallow draft, and high speed. Their paddle wheels, driven by steam engines that burned smokeless anthracite coal, could make speeds of 17 knots. These speed demons would wait for the cover of fog, gale, and darkness to attempt to slip through the Union blockade. Moving quickly and quietly, they avoided contact with U.S. ships at all costs, and generally had no plan of action in the event that they were discovered. Captain John Wilkinson's blockade-running ship, however, used somewhat different tactics to outfox the enemy.
Shaping our course for Beaufort and slowing down as we were in no haste to get there, we passed several vessels.
Oh no, it's U.S. ships. Quickly, put up the U.S. flag.
Showing United States colors to them all. Just as we were crossing through the ripple of shallow water off the tail of the shoals, we dipped our colors to a sloop of war which passed 3 or 4 miles to the south of us. The courtesy was promptly responded to, but I have no doubt her captain thought me a lubberly and careless seaman to shade the shoals so closely. We stopped the engines when no vessel was in sight, and I was relieved from a heavy burden of anxiety as the sun sank below the horizon and the course was shaped at full speed for Masonboro Inlet.
Utilizing this tactic of confusion, Wilkinson used a very different kind of blockade-running ship. Built in England and originally named the Giraffe, the R.E. Lee was unique in that it did have ironclad hulls. This not only provided some defense, but also allowed the vessel to pose as a Union ship part of the blockade. Under the cover of darkness and heavy fog, it would be easy for a supposedly Union ship appearing in an unexpected location to be dismissed as a simple mistake on the part of the captain. But the R.E. Lee did still have a low draft and good speed, and Wilkinson would work this speed, stealth, and masquerade into his strategy.
John Wilkinson was an extremely clever man, both in his field and in his writings. He was a blockade runner, and when running such a blockade, he would launch a decoy missile, causing the Union Army to go in the opposite direction of where his ship was going to go, letting him break the blockade. So, when he described one of these escapades in his narrative, he would describe it really vividly with good imagery and make it sound like he was bragging about his own actions. But then he would proceed swiftly, immediately, to dismiss these actions as trivial and say, oh, they don't matter.
Although Wilkinson may have avoided mention of his profits, he was in fact quite wealthy, bringing in $2 million in the transport of cotton alone. While many Confederates begrudged the blockade runners' riches while Lee's army was in rags, the work these sailors did was truly invaluable, bringing in much-needed munitions and supplies.
Well, the blockade runners were immensely important in keeping the South in the war. Had the Confederacy not had at least a somewhat steady stream of supplies, in other words, if the Anaconda Plan had worked, then the South probably would have been forced to surrender in a few short months after the war began.
Knowing the importance of this blockade run, both to the Confederacy and to himself, Captain Wilkinson again turns to his mission of slipping past the Union blockade. Despite the risks, it is business as usual on board the R.E. Lee. But this night would prove to be very different than any other. Wilkinson, noticing an unusually high number of Union ships in the general area of the harbor at Wilmington and their odd formation, toyed with the idea of aborting the mission while there was still time. However, the R.A. Lee's persistent crew convinced him to continue. When it became apparent to Wilkinson that the ship, its crew, and its cargo were in danger, he ordered that the ship turn back. When the crew threatened mutiny, Wilkinson was forced to relinquish control of the vessel to his first mate, who maintained the current course. On his 22nd attempted blockade run, the R.E. Lee was captured by the U.S. blockade. One of the greatest blockade-running ships of all time was re-outfitted by the U.S. Navy and stationed as part of a Union blockade in the Gulf of Mexico. Though the Confederacy may have lost the war, Southern pride is still alive and well even today. And while Johnny Reb may more easily remember the soldiers on the battlefield, one must pay homage to the heroes of the sea, the rebel blockade runners.